One question you might have in mind is, how do I set up my iPhone to take the best quality photos possible? Having used the iPhone 15 Pro in the past week, I've been trying out different settings with the phone. So today, I'm here to share with you my favorite settings in order for you to get the best quality photo on your current iPhone 15 Pro. Just take note that the settings do change year to year with newer iPhones. However, the general gist of the iPhone settings should stay the same across most iPhone Pro models. So without further ado, let's get right into the settings. So first we are going to settings, and then we are going to find camera. And here we see that there's this thing called formats. The most important thing that you have to take note of is this function called the Pro RAW and Resolution Control. So this is something that you want to have toggled on if you haven't done so. So what this means is that you're going to be shooting it in RAW file instead of your normal JPEG mode. And also with this, you have larger data to work with. With larger data, it means that you'll be able to play more with the white balance, you'll be able to play with the exposure and the colors on it, which gives you a lot more dynamic range to work with on a photo. So one of the downside of shooting in ProRAW Max is that it will have a slower processing speed. This is definitely a lot slower than shooting in JPEG. If you're in a rush, you can just simply turn it off, and I'll show you how to turn it off later in the camera application. Now that we are done with the formats, what we are going to do is we are going to head back and go down to the preserve settings feature here. So what this preserve settings feature actually does is that it just helps you to retain all the settings that you have set. Everything here is toggled off except for the Pro RAW and Resolution Control. By toggling this on, you'll be able to go out for a shoot and you won't have to keep readjusting your settings. Now that we are done with the preserve settings, next is to go back to the previous screen and go down to composition, which is what you'll see right below. So over here, you'll see that there's grid, level, mirror front, and view outside the frame. I have toggled on two in particular. Number one is grid, and the second one is level. So what grid does is it will actually help you with framing, and it will help you with deciding where to put your subject within the photo itself. So think about the rules of third. So this grid actually helps you a lot with that. And the other composition that I really like to have is level. So not a lot of people like to use this, but for me, because I shoot a bit of videos myself, I tend to like this function as it will tell me whether or not my camera is tilted or not. Going back to the camera settings itself, we have this thing called the photo capture, where you have the photographic style. There are a few presets: a rich contrast style, a vibrant, warm, cool. I don't really use this as I like to do a lot of post edits on my own. So I tend to stick to standard, and I don't think you have to touch this at all. Moving on, there is a feature called Prioritize Faster Shooting. If you have this toggled on, make sure to off it. So the downside of this is that yes, it might take you just a bit longer in order to take your photo, but you are going to be able to get the best quality photo possible. Other than that, we have lens control and macro control. We are just going to leave that on. This is all you have to set to get the best quality photos possible. So when it comes to taking photos, I do not use any specific applications. I tend to stick to the native camera application because it is sufficient enough for me to do everything that I need to do. So going into the camera application, the first thing you see is the grid lines right here. So this actually tells you where to place your subject. And what you'll notice also is that there's a plus sign right in the center of the screen. So what this plus sign is all about is helping you to level out your shot, like what I've mentioned earlier on. If I were to lift this straight up, you'll start to notice there are two short lines on the side and one long one in the center. If your shot is tilted, you can actually see how the lines are imbalanced. Whereas if your shot is balanced, you can see that there's a yellow line right here. And this yellow line marks that it's actually well balanced. So taking a look at the top right corner, you have this thing called RAW Max, and this is what you need to have enabled in order for you to take the best quality photos. Do take note though that when you have this feature enabled and you take a photo, there tends to be a loading time. So take note of that. If you want to take a photo very quickly without having to wait, what you could do is to turn off this RAW Max function and tap on it again. And you'll see that it's instantaneous. Moving on, next to the RAW Max, you'll see that there's this circle, and what this circle is actually the live function. When you have the live function turned on, you are not able to use the RAW Max function. So it's an either or kind of thing, and you have to decide at what point is the features going to be suitable for you. So I think one thing a lot of people do not realize is that at the top of the screen, there is actually a small arrow, and if you were to select that, you can see that it brings up more features at the bottom of your camera application. So moving through briefly on what are some of the customization options available. From the left, you have got your flash, whether you want it auto, on or off. You have got your night mode. So what it does is that it helps you to capture more light when you're using it for night photography. Next, you have your live function, whether is it on or off, followed by your aspect ratio, 4:3 square or 16:9. I do not touch it and I'll just keep it to 4:3. And then you have your exposure settings where you can adjust manually, which I tend to keep as per default until I decide what photos I want to take. Next, you have your timer, whether is it 3 seconds or 10 seconds. And finally, you have the different presets. Here you have a few options. You have original, vivid, vivid warm, vivid cool, and many others which you can select. For myself, I tend to keep it to original. So any edits that I do, I tend to do it only after taking the photos. Hopefully it gives you a clearer idea of what are the options that you have when it comes to customizing your settings for you to capture your photos. Okay, so moving on the iPhone, you also have different photo modes. We have got the time-lapse, we have got slow-mo, cinematic, video, photo, portrait, and panel. So these are the few options that you currently have. So photo mode is usually what I stick to. However, you also have the option of using portrait mode. For myself, I do not use portrait mode that often is because I feel that the bokeh on it is still quite artificial. Even though it has been improved a lot on the current model, I just do not really like it that much. Another thing to note is that portrait currently do not support RAW max capabilities, and all the photos that you capture will be in JPEG format. On the iPhone itself, there are currently 3 different lenses. One for your standard, one for zoom, and one for macro. If you take a look at the photo, when you tap on the 1 times, it brings you to a 1.2 times zoom at 28mm. If you tap it one more time, it will be at a 35mm zoom at 1.5 times. For myself, I tend to keep it at the native 1 times, which is 24mm, because I believe that this is where you can maximize the camera lens capabilities. Okay, so what I've shared so far is the camera settings and the options that I use to take my pictures. So the next thing that I want to show you is my editing process and how do I go about using my editing application. The editing application that I use is Lightroom, and the reason why I pick it is because it syncs very easily between my phone to my laptop. And also at the same time, by using it, I have my default presets on it. So let's just show you an example of one of the product photos that I took. So looking at the photo itself, I think it looks great already, even without any presets. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into the presets and look at what I currently have. So in my mind, I kind of know which presets I like because these are the presets that I've created specifically for product shots. So you can also adjust how intense you want your preset to be. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some light adjustments. So over here, I'll have my exposure, my contrast. I'll just see whether I want to turn the photo up or not. Okay, maybe just ever so slightly. Okay, bring it up just slightly. Contrast seems to be... I tend to push to the extremes just to see how does it look at certain extremes, but if not, I'll just bring it up slightly. Shadows, I think I can lift it up. Okay, highlights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a S curve. Let's just bring down some of the shadows, bring up some of the highlights, and I think ever so slightly, I think it looks good so far. Looking at it, white balance seems fine. Product shots, I kind of like it slightly more bluish, so I think this is fine. Texture, clarity, I think it's okay. No, not any issues. Sharpening should be fine. Geometry, I do play with it every now and then, but I think for this photo, it looks good. I'm happy with how it turns out so far. Just going to remove some of the dots here. So there's some speck of dust, so I'm just going to do that. Masking, you can also mask your photos. So over here, if you think that the background is too bright, what you can do is you can actually invert the mask, bring down the exposure. Yeah, I'm just going to do it a bit just to get rid of that, some of the highlights on the left side. As long as you take the photo well within a controlled lighting environment, I think that the photo you get should be quite good. It should look super sharp too. Yeah, really like the camera on the iPhone. Bam, guys, we are done. So this is how the photo looks like before, As long as you know how to work your settings and you know how to play around your edits, I think generally the photo will come out really nice. This is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed what I've shared so far. Just remember to turn on your Pro Max picture because that's the one that will enable you to get the highest quality photos possible. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you like what you see, do not forget to hit the like button on this video. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel. If not, I will see you guys on the next one.